The narcissist's eventual downfall often arrives through a single moment, when they push beyond the boundaries of what even their most devoted victim can rationalize, excuse, or tolerate. This critical juncture doesn't necessarily involve their most objectively terrible behavior. It's the specific transgression that finally shatters their victims' carefully maintained illusions and denial mechanisms. The narcissist, operating from their characteristic inability to recognize limits or read emotional cues accurately, crosses an invisible line they didn't know existed, triggering an irreversible psychological shift in someone who had previously absorbed endless mistreatment. This moment represents the narcissist's fatal miscalculation, their assumption that their victim's tolerance is infinite, their forgiveness automatic, and their return inevitable regardless of how far the abuse escalates. The public humiliation that destroys plausible deniability. The narcissist often takes things too far by humiliating their victim in front of witnesses who can no longer be gaslit about what occurred. Previous abuse happened behind closed doors where the narcissist could deny, minimize, or reframe events. But this transgression unfolds before an audience that confirms the victim's reality. They might rage at their partner in front of family, mock them cruelly at a social gathering, or create a scene that leaves witnesses uncomfortable and the victim's humiliation undeniable. This public exposure serves dual purposes. It validates the victim's experience through external witnesses while simultaneously destroying the narcissist's carefully maintained public image. The victim can no longer question whether they're overreacting or misinterpreting private interactions when others witness the same cruelty and reacted with shock or disgust. The narcissist's mask has slipped so dramatically in front of others that their victim's cognitive dissonance finally collapses under the weight of undeniable evidence. The attack on something sacred. The narcissist crosses the point of no return when they violate something their victim holds sacred. Attacking their children, destroying cherished possessions with sentimental value, sabotaging career opportunities that represent years of work, or desecrating relationships with people their victim loves. This transgression differs from previous abuse because it targets something the victim values more than the relationship itself, finally creating a hierarchy where protecting what's sacred outweighs preserving the connection with the narcissist. This calculated cruelty often represents the narcissist's attempt to reassert dominance when they sense their victim developing independence or boundaries. They escalate to attacking what matters most, believing this will demonstrate their power and restore their control. Instead, this violation triggers protective instincts stronger than the trauma bond, activating a primal determination to defend what's sacred, even if it means permanently severing ties with the narcissist. The lie too big to rationalize. The narcissist takes it too far when they tell a lie so enormous, so easily disprovable, or so insulting to their victim's intelligence that it shatters the final remnants of trust and respect. Previous deceptions could be rationalized as misunderstandings or minor dishonesty, but this lie crosses into territory where continued belief requires complete abandonment of logic and self-respect. The victim faces the stark choice between accepting an obvious fabrication and acknowledging that their partner views them as too stupid to recognize blatant deception. This moment often involves the narcissist lying about something the victim witnessed directly, has concrete evidence of, or knows with absolute certainty. The audacity of the deception, the narcissist's willingness to look directly at their victim while denying obvious reality, finally penetrates the fog of manipulation to reveal the depth of contempt the narcissist holds for their victim's intelligence and worth. The unforgivable boundary violation. The narcissist crosses the final line when they violate a boundary their victim explicitly established as non-negotiable, perhaps involving physical safety, financial security, sexual autonomy, or protection of children. The victim had clearly communicated that crossing this specific boundary would end the relationship, and the narcissist, operating from their characteristic belief that rules don't apply to them, violates it anyway. This transgression differs from previous boundary violations because the victim had staked the relationship itself on this limit being respected. The narcissist's decision to cross this clearly marked boundary reveals their fundamental inability to respect their victim's autonomy or believe in genuine consequences. They've convinced themselves that their victim's attachment is so strong their fear of being alone so overwhelming, or their trauma bond so complete that even this explicitly stated deal breaker can be overcome with sufficient manipulation. This miscalculation proves fatal when their victim, having prepared psychologically for this exact violation, follows through on their stated consequence with unexpected resolve. The moment of crystalline clarity. When the narcissist takes it too far, they inadvertently gift their victim with a moment of devastating clarity that cuts through years of gaslighting, manipulation, and self-doubt. The victim suddenly sees the entire relationship with stark honesty, recognizing patterns they'd rationalized, acknowledging abuse they'd minimized, and understanding that improvement was never possible because the narcissist views their victim's pain as a feature rather than a flaw in their dynamic. This clarity arrives with such force that it cannot be undone, creating an irreversible psychological shift from hope to acceptance that the person they loved never actually existed beyond a carefully crafted performance designed to exploit their vulnerabilities.